Dans l'islam, c'est les écrits s'envolent et les paroles restent.
Il y a quand même rien de plus kiffant, tu vois, dans la vie, de te dire je fais un truc qui rend les autres heureux.
C'est arrivé plein de fois qu'il y ait des gens qui pleurent, mais aussi qu'on ait des fous rires.
Quand tu vas sur une scène flamme, tu viens avec qui t'es en fait.
Les mots vous ont emporté, ils vous ont emmené plus loin que votre imagination.
L'électricité du moment, l'émotion qui monte.
I never dreamed at all that it would spread internationally.
Welcome to this podcast where we meet slammers and artists who share emotions through words. This is part of an artistic and theoretical project on the slam movement. And by the way, this is shared on a website. The link is in the description if you want to know a little bit more about it. So, what better way to discover the slam movement than to meet its creator? Indeed, I was lucky enough to meet him and ask him all about it. Marc Smith is an American poet who found poetry readings in Chicago bowing and without intonation. So, in 1986, he had the idea to create a way so that poetry could be performed. That was the beginning of slam poetry. Thanks to this slammer, thousands of slam sessions have emerged all over the world and have given a new form of life to poetry. But how did this movement spread so quickly? Why did he choose the word slam? What is the history, the characteristic and the impact of this movement? That's what we will discover with the guy that is behind it all. I speak French and my English isn't perfect, but it was a wonderful exchange and fortunately Marc Smith speaks more than I do. By the way, you can expect a little bonus at the end of the interview. Let's not wait any longer and listen to a small excerpt from one of Marc Smith's shows before starting the interview.
Oh, my name's Marc Smith. Hand over hand, pulling the rope, next man up, pulling the rope, next woman up, sharing a place, sharing a vision, room enough for all on all the mountain peaks, force enough to hold all the hanging bodies dangling in the deep recesses of the mountain's belly steady, till they have the courage, till they know the courage, till they understand that the only courage there is to put the next man up, pull the next woman up, pull the next up, up, up.
Hello.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
I can.
Cool. Okay, thank
Hello.
you for being here. I'm passionate about slamming, so I'm so happy to be able to speak with you. And without you, maybe all my project wouldn't exist. So thank you to accept this interview.
Sure.
I speak French, so I'm very sorry if my English isn't so good.
Your English is very good.
Okay, so I of course know who you are, but can you just introduce yourself to start the interview?
Yeah, I'm Mark Kelly Smith, and I'm the guy that started the slam in Chicago way back in, and actually the performance poetry movement started at the Get Me Havelange in 1984, and then moved to the Green Mill in 1986.
I watched a lot of videos about you, and I heard many things you said about slam. But if you had to describe it with just one word, what would that be?
Oh, performance.
And for you, what's a good performance in a slam session, for example?
Well, when I started, most poets didn't try to perform at all.
Yeah.
They were very boring. And when we started, I guess we borrowed performance technique from all the different disciplines, from what a comedian does, what a preacher does, what a actor does, what a singer does, what a dancer does. Body movement is a big thing. Yeah. So we borrowed all the
we borrowed all the different techniques that we could find from the performing arts, and we started using them, and it worked. So I guess what would be a good performance is when someone knows their performance skills well, and most of all, when somebody is honestly communicating to people. The world is full of a lot of people that can communicate well and do stuff, but are they really trying to do something that's worthwhile to the human race? I don't know. When you get to the form of poetry has always been that art form that really sought out the truth of the moment, the beauty of the world. So you can be a good performer, but are you an honest performer? I don't know. Sometimes not.
Okay. I think you're a really good performer. I like so much the way you say words with your body and tension. It's congratulations, really. And for you, when does one become a slammer? When can we say that someone is a slammer?
Well, whenever a poem is performed, that's what it was all about, performing. So, and a big misconception is that there is a certain type of poem that is a slam poem. Maybe to some people, but that's not how it started.
Okay.
Any poem, when it's performed, becomes a slam poem. That's the name slam was just an arbitrary name that we made the show, but it became connected to performance poetry. So that's what slam is about, performance poetry.
That's cool. And when you came up with the concepts of slam, some people criticized you. How did you react to that?
Did some people what? Their car went by, so I couldn't hear what you said.
People criticized you.
Oh yeah.
And how did you react to that?
I didn't care. It was kind of a game with them, because the traditional poetry world had very few people that were listening to them. If you went to a poetry reading from the traditional poets, maybe there's 10 people there. Well, very early on at the Get Me High and then later at the Green Mill, we had, 100, 200, 300 people. Our audience was so much bigger than theirs that their criticisms they were like a joke to me. We made big fun of them. I mean, I was kind of I wasn't a good guy there. I kind of made a lot of fun of the traditional poets because they had no audience. It did become, the criticism became, annoying after a while, because they would go in journals and they would say this stuff that just wasn't true about what we were doing. Oh, that's just a bunch of people in a bar listening. They're all drunk. Not true. Not true.
Yes, and how did you feel the first time you performed at a poetry slam?
Well, there was, first time I performed there were no poetry slams.
Yeah.
The first time I performed was at a traditional poetry reading, and I was very, very nervous. I didn't know whether I was going to do it. Talking in front of people is not something that I'm, naturally, I still remember the guy's name. His name is Ralph Cintron, and he stood up and, that's where my career as a performer started. It was about a year later that I started my first show at the Get Me High, and that's really where the performance poetry movement started. Later in 1986, I started the show at the Green Mill and called it the Uptown Poetry Slam. And that name just, took off, it's...
Yeah. I think a really cool name, by the way. Yeah, slam, it's like percussion, or I don't know how to say in English, but it's really attracting. And I was just wondering, why did you choose the word slam to?
Yeah, it's a great story. You know, I had already, like I say, I had already started the show at the Green Mill.
Yeah.
I mean, at the Get Me High Jazz Club. And I was going to start a second show. And there was a reporter, Lynn Bodish, who was going to do an advanced story to help me with getting people to go to the show. She said, well, what are you going to call the show? And I'm going, oh, gee, I haven't thought about that. What am I going to call the show? And I was thinking about the time that one of Chicago's baseball heroes, Ernie Banks, I was thinking about the time when I was watching, as a little kid, watching the Chicago Cubs play, and I was wishing for Ernie Banks to hit a home run, and he did. He hit a grand slam home run. A grand slam is when you hit the ball out of the park and everybody, there's all bases are loaded and everybody gets the score.
Okay.
And then I was also thinking about slam dancing was around at the time. Slam dancing was when you went in the mosh pit, and, you know, the dance and the kind of positive negative thing that we were doing at the Get Me High, it just seemed to fit. Slam, the term slam in English can mean a very good thing, but it also can mean
like slam a door
down. So that's why I chose it.
And so you choose this word just in few seconds, or did you?
Yeah, I was just on the telephone there, and as she's talking, I'm thinking, boy, what should I call it? I wanted also to get the name of the neighborhood that the Green Mill was in, because it was a rundown neighborhood when I started there, and Uptown Poetry Slam. We had a nice rhythm to it too. So yeah, she's talking to me, and I'm Uptown Poetry Slam. So
that's funny because I've like read maybe one chapters about why the word slam and all the link we can do to this word, and you choose that in just few seconds. It's really nice. But
yeah, it shows how, you know, some of these marketing things, they think, oh, so much brilliance, but there's probably very little brilliance in it at all.
Yeah, but that's a cool thing. You find words that's perfect, like just like that. Right?
Yeah. You know, slam, you know, was a big word. You know, Michael Jordan was big at the time, and basketball slam, you know, so I guess I picked the right one.
Yeah, really. And so when you have imagined the organization of a poetry tournament in Chicago and a weekly open stage that you call Havelange Poetry Slam, as you say, and then more and more people came to see and to slam, and many people organized a slam session all over the world. Did you expect such a big success and that this movement grows so big?
Well, you know, early on in the States, I realized that we had a very, very vibrant and important thing happening. The show started, you know, somebody would come to my show and they, boy, man, we've never done poetry like this. I'm going to go back to my city and I'm going to start a show. So that's how the early slam started. The second one that formed was a guy named Vince Keeter. he went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and started his show. And then Ron Gillette, my good friend, started one in Milwaukee, and then he next in this. So I knew pretty early on that we had a very special thing and that it would spread. What I didn't realize, because I was at the time, I was a typical American and had never traveled overseas. I never dreamed at all that it would spread internationally. You know?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And what it did for me, it showed me very clearly that we are truly one species. All these, the fighting and the conflict with everybody is brought on by different institutions and, leaders and governments and, because everything that's happened in Chicago with the slam and other places happens everywhere. The same personalities come out, the same conflicts come out, the same problems come out. It has shown me that if we are truly just one species, and the differences are pretty arbitrary and most of the time manipulated by people in power.
Yeah. Okay. And so, how do you feel when you think that now, thanks to you and all the people who participate to this movement, how do you feel when you think that thanks to you, people can express themselves, some is learn at school, people have maybe, I interviewed another slammer who said, who was saying that slam changed his life. And so thanks to you, many lives was changed and a lot of events was organized. How do you feel when you think about it?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty lucky that early on, I also, through a lot of different things, lost my egocentric looking at things that the slam movement from very early on has been a gift that's been passed on to different people. And, I started it and I had a big role in the States and in Chicago at the beginning. I was the leader and did a lot of things, but I was giving things away at the same time. And what's happened internationally is really the product of a lot of different people that found the slam and put their hearts and soul to it. Most of it is glorious. Some of it gets too egocentric but it's really also was my organizing method at the early on was more of a horizontal way of doing it. Instead of me at the top, it was like, by all kinds of different people. And I think that's one, it's made it very move across the country. Another thing it hasn't done, it's never really been commercialized. There's been some commercial entities that have used it and exploited it, but basically it's still of the people and by the people and for the people. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So far as I'm concerned.
Okay. And when you say your name, people say sometimes, "So what?" And I was wondering.
Yeah, that's a joke. That's a joke that started way back at the Get Me High. We had a night at the Get Me High where it was very slow and it was very dull, and I was getting bored. So I remembered when my sister, I came home one day from school and was talking about how pretty the flowers were, and and she said, and she's a good person, and she's just that it was just that brother sister thing. She said, "So what? You think you're the only one that feels that way?" And And so I challenged the audience at the Get Me High.
Okay.
We challenged people to come up and tell the most heartfelt story that they could think of.
Okay.
And then the audience was either supposed to accept it or they would say, so what? It was so hilarious because no matter what story the person told, the audience ended up saying, so what, you know? And I use it to remind myself and to hopefully remind the other slammers in the world that, you know, you're a servant to your audience on the stage. You're not a big shot. You know, you're just doing something as a servant to your audience. Mm-hmm. So it's a reminder, okay, I marked and I started a slam. So what? You know, I'm just another human being. You know?
Okay. So what? You had the idea to organize small competitions after the slam evening. And how did you get this idea?
Yeah, the competition, once again, a lot of people make the mistake that thinking that slam is about the competition. Yeah. Well,
no, not really.
It's a vehicle. It's a dramatic vehicle for presenting performance poetry. So when like I say, we started at the Get Me High, and I formed the Chicago Poetry Ensemble, and we were doing shows from 1984 up until the Green Mill started. And the reason I started the Green Mill show was to have a bigger stage for ensemble work with the Chicago Poetry Ensemble.
Yeah.
We did the first couple of weeks, I think. We were supposed to have a 3-hour show.
Oh.
And we got to like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we still had to fill some more time. And so then we were just, you know, faking it till we made it, you know.
Okay.
I had heard about this place, the Exit, where the punk poets had done a poetry boxing match.
Okay.
And so I said, well, let's have a competition at the end. You know, we won't do it like they did it, but we'll have as a capper, as the end of the evening thing, the end of the evening event, we'll put this competition in to fill the time. And so at the beginning, it was the Chicago Poetry Ensemble members would, you know, fake it. You know, they dress up and do stuff. And, you know, then after a while, we didn't know how to score it. So first it was applause, and that didn't work. And then it was a bunch of different things, just experimenting. And then finally it took hold. And so it became, until, you know, the show at the Green Mill, because of the pandemic, has stopped. But until that time, it was always just a fun thing to do at the end of a long 3-hour night of performance poetry. It was when we went national, it got more serious. And in my estimation, it's become, you know, way too much focus on the competition and not enough on just performance poetry as an art form.
Yeah, that's funny to think that at the beginning it was just at the end just for fun, and now there are many competition, international competition. And
right.
Do you feel that slam can be maybe too competitive, and that poetry become too competitive?
Absolutely. You know, the worst thing that's happened is that when we started in Chicago, many performance poetry was used in many different ways, with whole shows with film and artwork and music and ensemble work. The early slam world was so courageous in trying new things, and that was what it was all about. Let's try a new way of using poetry in performance with some other art form and this and that. What the competition did is You know, in America at least, that's I can speak the most about it. You know, it became the 3-minute poem, and everybody just wanted. The forms got stuck in being a 3-minute poem.
So you didn't choose that it was 3 minutes maximum? It doesn't come from you?
We made that up at the first National Slams to control the time of the evening. It was just a production choice. It was not an artistic choice whatsoever. We had ensemble work in the first National Slams, and they were pretty fantastic. The ensemble form started to grow and grow, but then because poets wanted to have their 3 minutes by themselves, the ensemble work kind of started to diminish. So the competition became something that drove the ego too much, rather than somebody really thinking artistically, I need to communicate this. They wanted to win. And then they started to copy the poems that won, both the poems and the performance styles that won competitions. And then you get to some shows and then you're watching, 1 hour of the same type of poem, the same type of performance. Very boring.
As less as boring as it was before with the poetry.
Just as boring and right, exactly right. And I guess that's how things happen, who knows.
But fortunately, there is still a poetry session with no competitions, just for fun. That's cool.
Yes. And also, because we kept this service thing in mind all the time. The great thing is that it has created new communities all over the world.
Yeah.
So when a slam comes to an area, it's the same thing. Wow, how do we do this? And it builds a community, and that part of it is still really strong. But then when it gets too professional and too organized with the big competitions, but that's just there is really good parts of that. The national competitions that people do. They're really good things too. They bring people together. It's just when they take it too seriously that things go wrong.
And so, did you to take part of some competitions, or not really?
I've only done it twice. I've only been a competitor twice.
Right.
The first time was so stupid. A professor in Chicago challenged me, and I, he was battered. Okay, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And I had everything to lose. And he had, if he would have won, the professors would have gone, see, Marc Smith's not so much. It was so stupid of me to do that. And then the second one was, I did it was a benefit in Washington, D.C. And I don't know, they invited me and they treated me just like I was a guy off the street, and it was, it was kind of humiliating. Like, oh, wait a minute, I started this and now I'm just this guy off, my ego got in the way, but I survived.
That's the principle. And do you think that the classical poetry in Chicago has evolved since you came up with the slam, or is it still boring now?
No. A lot of the the traditional poets had, a lot of them learned, I got to do a little better job. There's still, there's still a certain snobbery in the traditional poetry world. but they have stepped up their game a little bit, but not great. And a lot of the slam poets, for instance, the famous Patricia Smith in Chicago, she's had several books and published. The performance poets have entered into that traditional world where they are both published and well received in the publishing world and in the traditional world. A lot of them teach. Jeffrey McDaniels, who is a great slammer, he teaches in one of the big universities in the East. So it's entered that world. There's still a little friction, but
okay. And today some slammers are inspired by this movement to create their own album and single, like Grand Corps Malade in France that you've met, I guess?
Yes.
And do you think that we can call this slam too?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's performance. And Grand Corps Malade, what a great man he is. What a great guy,
Yeah.
Some slammers in the States who have attained great acclaim, they're not so nice. But Grand Corps Malade is a great guy. There are many other performance poets that are also recording artists that work with Ligue de Slam France, which my great friends Yopo and Zurich run. They work with the kids, they help and everything.
That's cool.
That a great, like I say, part of the tradition of slam is to give it away and help other people do it. But those, if you're an artist, you want to be able to make a living. And one of the ways to make a living is to do recordings and do concerts and, don't begrudge it.
Okay. So according to you, we can say if it's recorded and if we put some music on it, we can say it's slam too.
Absolutely. It's performance. Anything that is performed, put a costume on. Early work with the Chicago Poetry Ensemble, we were all wearing these goofy costumes and stuff. Oh God, it was hilarious. Theater productions that have poetry. That's all from the slam world.
Okay, that's cool because when I was interviewing another French slammer, he said that if you say a text on a slam session, a slam stage, it's a slam, and if you go home and record it, and if you put some music on it, it's like rap or it's hip hop or whatever you want, but it's not slam. And yeah.
Oh, it's the rap form is the certain musical form, but when I look at like Jacques Brel and the François Chanson folks of the 50s, they were doing what we do, and that's whenever you're performing a poem, that's what it is, performance.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy to hear that because I like working slams and I like to record them and make music on it. And I was wondering, can I call that slam? Because I don't say to people directly, I record it and then I send it to people.
Yeah, well, that term slam, everybody wants to say what it is. That was the name of a show.
Yeah.
That was the name of a show. What we do is performance poetry. That's what we started. And if you're performing poetry on a recording, I guess that's the same thing.
Yeah, why not? Okay, that's cool. And as you already say, you describe slam as poetry of, by, and for the people. I like this sentence, by the way. And what impact can you see on the slammers and on the people who listen to them?
Well, as you know from the other people, I think you said you performed, they just found their thing. My greatest example of how it's impacted performers or the poets is Ivy in Montreal, who runs the French slams in Montreal. He was a a little bit of an actor, a singer, songwriter, and he just, he did okay at that stuff, but he just never found how he wanted to. And then when he found, came in contact with the slam, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I think a lot of slammers are that way. They're writers. They maybe they play a little guitar. They did a little acting, but they find this art form, and it truly is. It's a performing art. It's one of the performing arts now, and it has its own techniques. It has its own performance techniques, and so they find, oh, this is what I'm going to do. What it does for the audience, like I said, it creates a community. People who have loved poetry, but they've always just been sitting in their room reading it. Now they can go to some place and enjoy an evening where poetry is happening. And poetry is a place, a very intimate art form.
Yeah.
But you want to be able to share that, you want to be able to share your emotions and your feelings for things, and the love of words, the love of the music of words. Poetry is the music of words. So.
Yeah, that's cool to hear that, because what you say about the impact of the slammers, I feel exactly the same thing, because I like so much acting, I like theaters, I like music, and I like poetry, but I didn't know how to put that together. And then I discovered Grand Corps Malade, and I say myself, oh, that's what I want to do. And yeah, so that's exactly what you say. In your opinion, can the slam change something in a society?
Well, it's art. Art, the thing about why I've always fought against it being commercialized too much is that art, for me, has been a sacred thing throughout human history. Art, especially with writers, they've been the ones that have stood up and spoke the truth when the truth was not popular to hear. That's why so many were imprisoned and exiled. And art in all its forms changes people's lives all the time. So slam is no different than any other art form, in that it you can't, because we're, as artists, we are trying to look at the world from a new lens to find the truth, our truth, and the truth that exists in others. And when art becomes too commercialized, the purpose of art is to sell a product. And that's what we face in this world today, is that so much artistic energy, which is sacred, goes into creating not only products to sell, but politicians to sell and concepts to sell. And that's not a good thing.
But some artists still create things just to share. But yeah, that's sad to see how that can be just commercial. And yeah. And do you think that the way of declaim poetry at slam session is very different in Chicago and in America than in France or Belgium?
Like I said, there's so many similarities that are human being, because the slam has been very volatile. There's been conflicts in it, because it's been so free and open to everybody. There's been battles, and those things get repeated around the world. The same fights with other, and also the same wonderful stuff like opening up to the kids and doing that. The differences I think are, certainly there's differences in the languages and and our cultures, but the differences are very minimal compared to what is so much alike with all of us. And one of the projects that I started, One Poetic Voice, kind of proved that One Poetic Voice was where we took two languages, sometimes even more, two languages, and basically how it usually worked was that like a French ensemble would send the Chicago ensemble their text with translations, and then the Chicago ensemble would create a performance in English of their work, and then we would put the two working together at the same time, and the two languages are operating at the same time in a new performance of it. And it was brilliant. It was wonderful.
Yes, good idea.
And what it showed, as the two ensembles worked together, they had to work out different idioms and, what are you saying? What do you mean by this?
Okay.
But it was so connected to each other that, oh yeah, I can perform that. I know what you mean now. So
yeah, that's so cool. But I'm not sure to understand. So like French slammer write texts that were translated in English, and then slammers in Chicago perform the text of the French slammer
at the same time. I mean, you can go online and look this up. We did it with the Germans, a lot with the French, with the Ligue de Slam France. I did it with the Balkan countries, Poland, Slovenia, and all these, with the Italians. It's if you can imagine, you'd be performing the same poem, but the same poem is coming at you both in French and English at the same time. Sometimes sometimes the lines are back and forth, sometimes they're on top of each other, sometimes they're a little more separated. It's a whole new technique of ensemble work that grew out of what we did with the Chicago Poetry Ensemble and the Speakeasy Ensemble. It's very unique, and I'm sure there's some YouTube videos of it somewhere.
Okay, I'm gonna check it.
Yeah.
It's the first time I heard about this concept. It's really original, so I like it.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'll be too old to keep develop it. So it's gone, it hasn't gone anywhere that it could go. There's so much more that could be done with it. So
yeah, sure. I was wondering, what do you do with the Slam France League?
I've been coming there for years. Yopo and Zerk, who established it, are great friends. In fact, the house right over there, is going to be their house. They're going to inherit that from me. They're that good of friends from me.
Oh.
And they would also come here for the past 8 years, and would be a project called French Connection, and we do this One Poetic Voice thing where the two languages are going at once. They would bring an ensemble with them to work here. So they have, and then I go over when they have their national championship with the kids with Grand Corps Malade. I usually come over for that and other things that they do. So they're really super close friends. So
it's amazing how slam can link people together, even if like slam is the art also of playing with words and it's linked to the language, but it links people from different language and all over the world. That's really beautiful.
Okay.
You have also supported the Slam League of France, la Ligue de Slam de France, and with Grand Corps Malade, for example, to encourage slam in school. And for you, what can be the impacts of slam at school?
Oh, well, over in the States, it became and that started like in the mid 90s. It became a very important tool for getting kids interested in poetry, because I don't know how it's there, but poetry, I don't want to do the poet, no. It became fantastically popular. And now in Germany, same thing, big tool for teaching poetry and getting kids involved and giving kids a voice to that they don't sometimes don't have. That's probably going to stay, because, like I say, it's being taught in schools and everything. And
yeah, it's a really cool idea. And did you animate some like slam workshop in school or in other places?
I used to do that quite a bit, but I'm an old guy now, so not so much anymore.
Yeah.
But slammers would supplement their income. If they were trying to make it without having a regular job, they would supplement their income by teaching in schools. So
yeah.
And the audience would, it regenerates an audience, So one thing about the slam, here I'm an old guy. A lot of performers that are old guys, their audience gets old and it dies off. In the slam world, it's constantly regenerating, like yourself. You're interested in this art form now.
Yeah.
And that's been a really good thing about the slam, that it regenerates its audience.
Yeah, that's true. And how the workshop that you've done, how did it happen? What were you doing and what were you teaching there?
Yeah, you could look up Take the Mic is a book I wrote, the how-to, that has a lot of the exercises that I would teach. But basically what I was teaching was mostly performance poetry. Like I say, it's not just you can, just do it. It's technique. You learn technique just like you learn technique in acting or singing. And there are certain fundamentals that I identified, and I had made fun exercises for the kids to do. It was pretty good. It was pretty good workshop.
Cool. And how the kids reacted to that? Was they motivated? Was they shy? What was the?
Well, the trick of my workshop was that it slowly, because I'm a shy person, so I know that. So it would slowly work the people in. They do a little bit and then a little bit more, and all of a sudden their shyness is gone, and they're.
You're a shy person?
I am, yes, yeah. I've learned how to talk.
Yeah, because when I saw videos on YouTube when you slam, it's like, wow, and I can't imagine that you are a shy person.
Well, that's the point I make, that performing and speaking in front of people is a craft.
Of course.
And you can learn it. Just like anybody can throw a ball. If you teach somebody to throw a ball, they might not be able to throw it the best, but they can do it. It's like. And
when you slam on stage or at the slam session, have you much feedback from the audience?
That's another good thing. That was one of the things that I had. I have a very good sense of if I'm connecting to an audience. I've always had that. I really can zone in. So when I would, in the early days, when I would perform something and it didn't work, I would say, well, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, because I did this or because I did that. Well, maybe you need to rewrite this or rewrite that. So I've had a very good sense of whether I am connecting or not. some poets have no sense at all. You know, they get up and they do this poem, nobody understands it, and they don't ever try to change it. It's not, if you're an artist, the main point is that you're trying to communicate. If you're not communicating, you got to change something.
And when you perform a text, do you change a lot the way you perform each time?
You know, when you do it enough over the years, two things happen. You know, first you get more relaxed and you don't worry about when you mess up and you make it through. And second thing, you get kind of bored with doing the same stuff, so you change it up a little bit. And I'm pretty loosey-goosey these days about it, almost like a jazz player who, you know, okay, I can play that melody, but I don't want to play the melody the way it's played. I'm gonna riff on it. So mainly you learn that while you get up there sometimes and you blank, you don't have it. You can't just, the worst thing you can do is say, stop. You just plow through and make something up and you succeed. So.
Yeah. And you say you were more relaxed. And so when you go on stage, do you still stress or not at all?
The only time I get stressed is when there's two times. When I'm facing a situation where that I haven't, you know, something new that I haven't had much experience with, which is, I've done a lot. So those occasions are pretty rare, but I can get uptight. The other time can happen anytime. If I get to a performance too early and I'm sitting around waiting, then all of a sudden it would, oh my God, I'm getting, and I developed a trick. Well, it's not really a trick. I will go out and I will just, the first thing I'll say is, you know, I've been backstage and all of a sudden I got nervous and I don't, you know, I'm scared, you know. And then I have a couple poems that I do that are real high energy. And I said, I'm going to do this poem because I need to get the stress out. And then
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Then I'm okay.
Okay. And what inspires the themes of your poems?
You know, most of it has been just everyday people and everyday things. I have some political stuff, you know, it's hard in this world not to write something that is inspired by the newspapers or some political action. But most of the stuff I have are you know, just, you know, my experience with life in general. Like, you know, the one poem that's probably the only one that's ever remembered of mine 100 years from now is My Father's Coat, which is about my relationship with my dad and me. And it's so universal. I've done this poem for young people, old people, people everywhere. I got allergies, so that's why I keep wiping my nose here. Snot, you got an interview, I got snot all over my face here.
No problem.
That poem, My Father's Coat, connects with rich people, poor people. And I like to think of myself as a poet that tries to grasp at universal truths. You know, political truths, fine, but political truths are gone. They go away because they're all about our kind of petty things that are going on. But there's certain universals, like the relationship between a father and their daughter or son. Always.
Yeah, that's
big.
That's interesting how slam can connect people and how people can identify themselves to that. That's really nice.
Right.
And so, do you think that the slam poetry sometimes has to be socially engaged or not especially?
Socially engaged? I don't understand. Be a social activist type thing?
Yes.
You know, a lot of the slam world has become this social, we got to change the world. And it's an important role for all art to do. But when it just becomes that, it becomes too much a political tool. You're a political tool for a certain point of view. Sometimes, as right as some political activists are, I agree with them.
Okay.
It's not a universal thing. They're not grasping the universal truths of the situation. They're just, the thing to beware of is that it becomes its own propaganda. You may believe in that propaganda, but it's still propaganda. It's trying to persuade somebody to think the way that you think or accept the way you think, rather than what poetry traditionally did was present something in a way that just, oh, I see it now. To see something rather than say, you should think this way. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you this. Take a look at it. Oh.
Yeah, but sometimes it can be like that, but with an engaged STEM, like activist STEM, maybe for climate, for inegalities. It can be like not think what I'm thinking, but just denunciating some situations without want to the people think like you. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things written over the years about the difference between where art has always been a vehicle to enlighten people to see things, and it's changed the world. But we also know that art has been used over the centuries as a political propaganda aspect. Okay. And that's what you have to be concerned about. That are you being an artist or are you being a propagandist?
Yeah, of course, that's not the same role. And when you spoke about rap, for you, what's the difference between slam and rap or some other music, if there is performance?
Yeah, so the rap and hip hop, they came out of the music world.
Yeah,
that started, in the 70s, I think, in the music world. The hip hop artists in Chicago came into the slam world because they wanted to have a place where they could expand on their writing form.
Yeah.
The rap form, just like lyrics and music, there's a certain limitation there, in it, because of the form. The form limits it to what you can do. And the hip hop artists came into the slam world because they could be a broader way to do stuff. For instance, and when you say, the music isn't, rap has a certain form, that, it's like got its variations also, but it's a certain musical form. Just like a ballad, sing a ballad is a certain musical form. The people that have experimented with, and myself included, you might look at the Last Word Quintet. That's my latest project. It's a bunch of old guys like me. But it's a new way of weaving the poetry into the music. Mm-hmm. It's pretty unique.
Of course.
That's just one way of using performance poetry. You could put it in music. You could put it in a play. You could put it with costumes. You could put it with art. it's just another way of a performance poet to be able to expand on his art, on his or her art form. You know, that's
Okay, interesting. And I guess there are many, but what is one of your favorite memory about slam?
oh well, what came to mind when you said that, one of the places that the slam spread to was Asheville, North Carolina, probably in the mid '90s. It was pretty strong, and they had a national slam there. A guy named Alan Wolf and his wife Ginger were the ones that started it, with Jim Nave and quite a few other poets.
Okay.
And it got going strong. And I had been working with one of the bands I work with, and we went on a tour. And we one of the stops was Asheville, North Carolina. And they had set up this wonderful situation, a performance space, which they had to, make themselves. They brought the chairs, they brought the sound system, they brought the stage, they brought the audience, and they set it up, and it was just a great concert. And when the concert was over, it wasn't Alan and Ginger by themselves breaking everything down. Their whole community of the slam world down there
Wow.
were carrying it. It was like a colony of ants carrying out all the different parts of the thing.
Cool.
And it was so precious because it was the community that probably had set it all up, and now they're taking it all down. I don't know how you've been, but many times you go to you're an organizer and you set everything up, and you're the one there at the end while everybody else is partying. You're the one that's taking it all down.
Yeah, and everyone were all organized.
Everybody. Isn't that something?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you have maybe, I don't know, a funny story you want to tell about slam?
The only thing I would say is that, great interview. Yes, I'm sorry, my nose was running so much.
No problem.
I guess I think is where I'm at now is that the slam is it belongs to everybody. Nobody should say it's this or it's that.
Yeah.
It's got many different faces. The most important thing, I believe, is that, like I said, the communities that it grows, and that it's been passed on as a gift. I hope I don't see too many more commercials with the slammer on the commercial. So here I have the next new product to sell. Let me do a slam poem about it. I hope it doesn't go that direction.
I think slam is not now, at least in Belgium, it's not that commercial.
No, it hasn't. We survived, and it never went that far.
Yeah,
so.
That's cool.
But unfortunately, like rap, think about rap. I mean, I don't know how it is there, but all kinds of commercials with the rap style on it.
Yeah, it's quite commercial, and that's like the nature of the poetry sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah.
And for you, what's the cool and the motivating aspects of being an artist and a poet like you, and what's maybe the more negative things?
Well, for me, I was, before this, I had a family and was a construction worker and was doing the 9-to-5 day. I found, just like you say yourself and other people, Ivy and all I found my destiny, what I was supposed to do in life. And there's nothing better than finding what your purpose is. in my later life, I've been there, done that. I work with the Last Word Quintet now. Like I said, I love doing that. I've lived my goal. I've passed up my dreams many times.
Congratulations. That's really cool.
A negative part of you know what I think the negative part is that myself, you start something and at the beginning, wait a minute, this is the way it's supposed to be. I think too many times I was too controlling of things and didn't let it, not a lot, but too many times I was too controlling and didn't let it flourish the way it should. It did anyway, because I didn't hold on that tight. But I think that I could have done I certainly for my career, I could have done a lot of things different. I was so arrogant that I wouldn't let people help me. If somebody was, I didn't let enough people help me, and people want to help you, and they can give, what am I trying to say? It's better to travel with a bunch of people together. And I learned this later in life. I mean, but this is at the beginning, here I did this thing,
Yeah.
It's better to travel with a group of people together and share what's going on than it is to be the artist in control. Not that I did that, I gave it, I opened up and that, but at the beginning, I think I was too controlling.
Yeah, but I think it's just amazing how that could be created thanks to you. So really, it's impressed me. And I was wondering why did you choose to do slam poetry only a cappella and not with music?
Oh no, I've always performed with music.
Yeah.
I've always, from the beginning, yeah. Always.
Oh, I didn't know that. But when I'm looking for videos when you slam or on just the concept of slam poetry, there isn't any music.
Yeah. Oh, there's no music only because we never bothered to video it. I suppose of the early bands there might be some stuff. No, I always that's a misconception. From the very beginning, at the Green Mill, there was music involved. I always had a band for years, for almost all the shows, there was a band or a piano player that accompanied open mic if they wanted to.
That's interesting. I really didn't know that, because when I looking for what is slam, and I always see slam is a cappella and 3 minutes and.
No, that's the famous Pilote Le Hot in France tried to drum that into people's minds.
Oh, that's good. I think that it can be said if we just put slam without music, and with music it's no slam. And I'm happy to hear that we can put music and still slam. And so when you were saying poems, sometimes did you not put music on it, or always?
No, I would. It was just an option.
Yeah.
Many a cappella performances, yeah. But it was never one or the other. It was just one of the things I did. I would work with the bands. I would work with ensemble work.
That's good.
The whole point was that use poetry as in any way you can. Just don't be limited.
Of course.
but it's different than, it's different than it becoming the poem, almost every musical combination with my poetry is different. It's not just one style. It's, some are jazzy, some are rocky, it never became, it was always the poetry dictated what kind of music would go to it, instead of having the musical form influence how the poems are written. It was the poem came first, and then you put the music with it, with the best music that would go with it.
Okay, that's good. And for you, what can music bring to words, negatively or positively?
Well, as I said, the poetry to me is the music of words, so it's very natural. There, that the two combine. In the best situation is that the best situation for it is that neither the poetry or the music overpowers the other, that they are in conjunction with each other. The project that I'm working on now, which you probably should look up, the Last Word Quintet, because there's YouTube videos of it.
Yeah.
It's there's a singer in it who sings a song.
Yeah.
Now I have added not only to the music, but to the song, I've added the poems that are in there. It's like the poetry is like another instrument in the band that supports these lyrics of L Day's lyrics. So I think of myself with the words as a musical instrument, and the words are the notes of my particular instrument.
Okay, that's interesting. You say that we have to break the rules in slam. So I was wondering, when you write, do you pay attention to some poetic rules, like the writing, the organization of the poetry, or not especially?
Yeah, I think my style adopted kind of what Jack Kerouac was doing with the beats in that, where my phrasing is a musical phrasing similar to phrasing in music. There's meter to it, but it's not fixed. It's not fixed meter. Of course, I use all the other techniques of poetry in it, with the tropes, the similes, all that, assonance. I know all those techniques. But the rhythmic phrasing is more from a musical jazz point of view, rather than having a fixed form.
Okay. And at the beginning, before the slam, or maybe still now, I don't know, you were writing poetry to maybe publish them in papers and stuff like that.
Since I was 19.
And did the way you write, did it change since you were slamming, or not especially?
Very much so, because you become aware of the performance aspect of it, and more importantly, a lot of the poetry when I was writing and trying to publish it, the poetry world poems were very obscure. You'd read them like, what are you talking about?
Your poems or poems in general?
Probably mine were, because they were really bad, but the ones that I was reading, it was like, boy, you'd have to sit and read it over and over again. I became aware when I was on the stage that you've got one opportunity to communicate efficiently what you're saying. So I think my work became much clearer in communication.
Okay.
And I think therefore better. I think, writing that doesn't communicate efficiently, you know, is bad writing, I think.
Yeah.
So I think I became more accessible than I had been copying other people that are
Yeah.
get so, you know, highfalutin with their stuff.
Maybe. And now when you write a poem, do you directly think how it's gonna be performed? Or it's like different parts of the process?
Not so much how it's performed, but I don't know about you, but I think most writers, you have a little voice in your head.
Yeah.
And when you're writing it, there's definitely a musical way that it's coming out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets on the page, and most, the traditional poets, they would write this very beautiful stuff, and then they get on the stage and blah 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 blah. They wouldn't try to bring that back to life, what was going on in their head.
Right.
And I think that that's what I try to do, is I try to bring to life whatever that voice is that's going on in my head. So I don't think that happens so much consciously when I'm writing. But when I go back to think, okay, performing this, I try to bring back to remember how that was sounding in my voice, in my head.
Yeah. And you do that so well, I think, perform really. Do you think a lot of what gesture you're gonna make, or does it come naturally?
Well, I've become kind of lazy, and I'm pretty good now. But when I first, the first few years, I thought very much about how to, how I'm going to move my hands in that, because like many people, you're not comfortable with your body yet, and you don't let it do whatever you want it to do. And you get on stage and you're kind of like stiff, even if your voice is better and making some, you're kind of stiff. I would plan out, I would be through rehearsal, I would discover things and then do the same things over again. I would remember, just like an actor, an actor finds how to be on stage by rehearsal. All of a sudden you did this, oh, I went like that. Well, now every time you do get to that point, you're going to go do that. And that's how I started to, that's how the gestures came about. I think now I get kind of lazy and I just wing it,
Okay. And before the slam, you were working in a construction, I think. And did you always been interested with writings, or does it come one day?
Oh, no. Since I was 19 years old, I wrote, and that whole time working, raising a family and working in construction, I was writing thousands and thousands of bad poems. I learned how to write poetry by writing bad poems and writing and writing and writing. Always from 19 on, I wanted to be a writer. And when I discovered the stage, that's wow.
Yeah. And what makes you think that you want to be a writer?
I met my first wife in college, and she wanted to be a writer and a poet, and I thought I better start doing that too. So
okay.
So love. Live.
It's all about love. And you spoke about your new project that's called Last Words.
Last Word Quintet, yeah.
Yeah, and What is it? What's the concept of it?
It's a jazz band. There's Al Day is the singer-songwriter, Bob Long, piano, Brian Gephardt, sax, and Doug Lufstrom, bass. The concept is Al has these tunes as he's wrote. I figure out or write a poem that will fit, that will complement him. So and it's great music. These guys are great musicians, been around for a long time. And we find different ways to, sometimes I am performing the poem right on top of his lyrics as he's singing. Sometimes I'm taking a solo over here by myself. It's very unique. You need, if you listen to it once, you'll figure out what it is.
Okay, I'm going to listen to it. And to conclude, maybe, do you have advice for people who want to slam?
Yeah, I would say my advice would be, keep breaking the rules. Slam has got its rules now. Slam world is very, it's as stylized and as restrictive some places as the people that I reacted against. Create new forms of how to create new ways of using performance poetry and opening doors and finding new audience. I mean, go crazy, Stuff we did at the beginning, unbelievable. Daring, the ensemble work, the Chicago Poetry Ensemble, unbelievable how daring they were. And the thing is that you're going to fail. We failed so many times. It's like, if you're not failing in what you're doing, you're not trying something new. So that's my advice.
Okay, thank you. And I was wondering, as a bonus, would you be agree to perform one of your favorite poems just for the interview? If you agree.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
Thank you.
So this is one that's very popular in Europe. I have a repertoire of stuff that, even if it's not translated, comes through. So if you need to kiss it, kiss it. If you need to kick it, kick it. If you need to scream it, scream it. But kiss it, kick it, scream it now. If you need to leave it, leave it. If you need to love it, love it. If you need to hold it, hold it. But leave it, love it, hold it now. If you need to squeeze it, squeeze it. If you need to spill it, spill it. If you need to tell the world you've got more to you than the world has as of yet allowed you to be, and be it. Tell it, spill it. Squeeze it out of each instantaneous moment. Make the juice, the jive, the jazz, the jism, the mysticism that ism you. Grab at the moon and hold the stars hot inside your head. Because now is all there ever was and all there ever will be. So kiss it, kick it, scream it now.
I like this poem. Really.
Okay.
It's very impressive the way that you I don't know, your intonation and every word is like very strong, and I like it very much. Okay. And how did you when does the idea of writing these poems came up?
Oh wow. Gee, I don't know. There's another longer poem that precedes it. And it was about I don't know, I don't know if there's a translation in French that fits it, but people in America, when they're, want to be something, I'm going to be it, like it becomes, oh, I want to be it. I'm going to do it, and it was this concept of it. And I have this other longer poem about it. It ain't something you can purchase. It ain't something, you read about in a book. It ain't a brain thing. So that longer poem, I think I wrote this to add on, because that longer poem talks about the problem of it, how do I be it,
Okay.
And then this poem is the solution to that yearning to be it.
Okay, that's cool. That's really beautiful, perhaps. I don't have questions anymore, but thank you so much to answer this interview. I really am so happy to meet you. And if you wouldn't made the slam, maybe all my project wouldn't exist, and I wouldn't find this passion I have for the world and the performance. So thank you so much for being here. It was really a pleasure to exchange with you about this movement.
You're welcome. Great. And your English is wonderful, and good luck on it. And when I get back to France sometime, usually for the Ligue de Slam France, maybe we'll meet up someday.
Why not? I think it's maybe the first time I speak so long English with Thomas.
You're doing great. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very much, and good continuation in your project. And it's wonderful.
Well, great. So glad I could help.
Yeah, really. Thank you so much.
Thanks. See you.
See you.
Thank you for listening, and thanks to Marc Smith for kindly answering the call. If you want to know more about his projects, the link to his website is in the description. And if you want to know more about the slam movement, the link to my project is there too. And don't hesitate to listen to the other slammers interview, this time in French. So, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and see you soon!